It's the early hours of Monday morning. A white utility can be seen entering the Hillsborough Road complex. Seconds later, the vehicle is driven into the front of Langdon Hair Salon. Two men get out, kicking open the glass doors. After grabbing hair care products, the pair make their escape. The smash and grab has left salon owner Sean Langdon scratching his head.
They've taken some hair straighteners and some shampoos and conditioners, so go figure. And yeah, it's pretty devastating. We've only been open 4 weeks.
The thieves were in and out in just a matter of minutes, but they've left thousands of dollars worth of damage.
It's around $12,000 altogether, so yeah, it's a fair bit.
Police are hoping someone will recognise the white Trayback ute and dob the bandits in. As for staff, it's back to work, cleaning up the mess left behind.
Weeks of repairing and reordering and insurance claims and just stuff that you don't need.
Amanda Bennett, NBN News.
Nestled in the picturesque Upper Hunter, St Helier's Correctional Centre, where the inmates produce food by the tonne. The men, who can't be identified for legal reasons, are hard at work, growing, cultivating and processing food for the state's prison system.
We're saving taxpayers $135,000 a year with the development of the agriculture and certainly the vegetable growing facilities.
Corrections Minister David Elliott today took a first-hand look at the operation. For those inmates working on the land, it means TAFE certifications.
I've done my Certificate 3 in agriculture since being down here, and that covers a whole broad spectrum of farming.
And for those literally on the inside, traineeships in food processing.
It keeps me busy, it's related to the working, and it's something I can use on the outside.
The best way to make a contribution is to get a trade, make them literate, drug-free and motivated.
But there are fears job losses could be on the horizon for those doing the teaching here and across the state. The Baird government is currently overhauling prison education, which could see some positions move to private training providers. The minister says it's all about efficiency.
We only had something like 63% of the education hours available to inmates being used. This is an adult education environment, just like you go to a trade school.
Mike Lorrigan, NBN News.
Her first season in Newcastle and her first playing overseas wasn't meant to end like this.
It wasn't the worst pain I ever felt, but I knew that there was no way that something wasn't seriously wrong. Half the people who have reached out to me from the league back home or even here, they're like, yeah, Kels, it's not going to lie, it sucks. It's a bad injury, but you're definitely going to come back stronger. You'll be able to focus on things that you wouldn't be able to focus on if you were still playing. So just trying to find the positives each day and work through it.
Among them, Washington teammate and former Jet Caprice Didasco, who was due to return to Newcastle this season before her own ACL injury.
She was the first person that I wanted to call when it happened, and I actually texted her from the bench, and she's super supportive, so I'm actually going to stop in Hawaii on my way home and see her and whatnot, and we'll be able to go through this together.
Weiss will return to the US for surgery once the swelling goes down. She's confident the ladder leading Jets have a strong replacement in Claire Coelho.
She's awesome. I love her, and I think she's deserving of a chance. She sent me an awesome message on Facebook just to let me know that she was there, and she also said she was really looking forward to learning from me and whatnot, and that's obviously awesome to hear, but I fully have her back, and I'm willing to help her in every way that I can from the sideline.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
With 4 professional wins on his record, all by way of knockout, it's difficult for Scott Edwards to find people to fight.
Getting fights here, just local opponents, it's been a bit of a struggle, locking them in. But, overseas I'm an unknown and, hopefully they'll know about me soon.
So when the call came, Edwards didn't have to think twice.
Laying in bed the other night, I got a phone call through from my manager. I woke up, he's like, do you want to fight? I'm like, yeah, of course. He's like, it's on the 17th of December. Yeah, no worries. It's in India. I'm like, whoa.
Unlike many in the game, Edwards is humble and mild-mannered. He's also shown a lot of confidence by agreeing to a bout where his opponent is yet to be decided.
I don't know how they've heard about me or how it's come about, but usually you don't go over there if they think you're going to win, so I'm going over there to prove them wrong.
The 29-year-old is looking forward to what will be a new experience all round.
I didn't have a passport, so I had to get one rushed through.
Resuming his evidence in the chair, growing increasingly agitated.
You're getting quite a tone there, Mr. Lawrence. Are you getting a bit irritated?
Because we've been through this already once.
Today's fiery questioning began with why defrocked priest Graham Lawrence failed to report church deacon Andrew Duncan's alleged pedophilia.
It was an alleged misbehaviour.
But for the most part focused on his relationship with an abuse victim known as CKH.
You were pursuing a sexual relationship with CKH in 1984, weren't you?
I was not.
And you had been for some years, had you not?
I was not.
That's contrary to CKH's evidence. However, he did admit he'd sent him a card on his 18th birthday featuring an image of a penis.
So you accept you sent this card to him?
Yes.
This card that says, "Thank heavens for little boys."
Yes, a quote out of a song.
Earlier today, former Assistant Bishop Richard Appleby continued giving evidence, this time over the phone from London. Since first appearing in August, the Royal Commission has examined a number of his diaries from the period of his tenure. They've proved that some of his previous assertions were wrong, in particular that he had met with a victim known as CKA about the abuse he'd experienced.
My only possible excuse is that I've always been someone who reads by scanning, and I've never, for example, I've never had the skills of being a proofreader. It was a careless mistake. It's one I should not have made, and I'm acutely embarrassed, and I apologise unreservedly to the Commission for it.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
Four councils in local government limbo, and Labor is crying foul.
There is no excuse for the minister to delay making a decision about who amalgamates with who up here.
Port Stephens, Dungog, Maitland and Newcastle all have merger proposals pending, and unless a decision is made soon, it could be years before ratepayers head to the polls. Yesterday, local government minister Paul O'Toole confirmed council elections won't be held until March 2018, unless outstanding amalgamations are finalised before the end of the month.
They've seen the federal election pass, they've seen the by-elections and the council elections pass. There is nothing in their way to make a decision, and they shouldn't be putting it on our councillors now to decide whether or not we amalgamate to avoid an election in 2018.
It's been almost a year since the mergers were first announced. The minister's office today unable to clarify when a decision is likely, saying simply the proposals are still being considered.
Unfortunately, we are all caught up in this situation and we don't have much power or much say.
We've seen Newcastle Council have to appoint another GM. We've seen Newcastle Council lose a sitting councillor. We've just got a complete dog's breakfast in the process right from the very beginning.
Amanda Bennett, NBN News.
Particularly as the final route of the track is being resolved as we speak, we're hoping that that will happen in early December.
Nadine Page has been a foster carer for 9 years.
Actually chose me. It was kinship, and my whole life changed from there on for the better.
In that time, she's provided a safe home to 10 children.
And when you get that first cuddle, you know you've had a breakthrough, and you think, wow, I've done a good job here.
And when her job is done,
that's the best part, but it is heartbreaking. It tears a little bit of your soul out each time, but you know you're giving back, and you know it's for that child they're going to have a better life.
There are more than 5,000 children in foster care across the Hunter, New England and Central Coast. That's more than a third of all young people in care in New South Wales. It's predicted next year the Hunter will need 100 additional foster carers, prompting calls for help.
Particularly for emergency care, and also for caring for sibling groups, larger sibling groups. That's always something where we have difficulty.
Family and Community Services says becoming a foster carer is often riddled with misconceptions.
It doesn't matter whether you're single, it doesn't matter whether you're in a same-sex relationship. We want people who are able to open their homes and their hearts to children and young people who have really experienced quite significant hardship.
Amanda Bennett, NBN News.
We often view industry from outside, so it was great to get into the workshops and the lunchrooms and with the workers and seeing what they actually do behind the scenes.
The Jets attempted 20 shots on goal against the Mariners, the most by any team this season. Many should have sealed the Jets their second win of this campaign.
Especially in the second half, the chances we had, and I guess they were really on the back foot for the last 30 minutes or so, and to not get up another one and to get the 3 points, it is a little disappointing.
Devante Klute's long-range lob surprised the Mariners keeper. He says if they continue to be adventurous, goals will come.
Before the game, actually, I had hit a few from halfway, see what my range was like, and I said to myself, if I see him off the line in the game, I'm just going to go for it. That's the thing, if I hit it once, then next time the keeper's a bit more cautious, does he come out, which helps us put the balls in behind.
With Alexander Coco out with a broken jaw, Mark Jones will once again be forced to call on his depth. Chinese import Malay Lay's in contention to fill the void, while Labano Haliti is also in the frame. Clute is one player desperate to make hay while the sun shines.
It's a bittersweet kind of thing, takes the pressure off a little bit, but no one wants injuries. We've had a lot already this year.
Meantime, it's understood former mentor Scott Miller has accepted a new coaching role in Scandinavia, which is expected to be announced in the coming weeks.
We're probably more inclusive now than we might have been 10 years or so, more aware of the broader community, and this gives us an opportunity to connect back with the community.
After 16 days of hearings, current Bishop Greg Thompson, himself an abuse survivor, had his chance to give evidence.
It's the case that there has been a very significant problem with child sexual abuse in the Diocese of Newcastle.
Systemic, over many decades.
While forced to stand due to back pain, it was the suffering of abuse victims that was foremost on the bishop's mind.
Barker said, Greg, if you want to get into ministry, we have to have a relationship. Through his body language, Barker left me in no doubt that when he said I would have to have a relationship with him, that I would have to have a sexual relationship with him.
Since going public as a survivor last year, Bishop Thompson told the Commission he's been the victim of a campaign against his leadership.
I felt shamed. Public shame.
Rocked by the revelations tabled in this inquiry, the Newcastle Diocese will now undergo a number of independent reviews, including one by a former police commander, into its policies and practice to try and restore confidence and trust.
The house is burning. We need a national response. We need resolution and resolve from our bishops. In the end, it's hearts and minds. And until we have hearts and minds convinced that child safety is of the highest order and that those who have suffered need to have proper redress, change will be slow.
For other abuse victims, Bishop Thompson has been a rock during the hearings, something clear as he left the stand today. The Royal Commission will now use the evidence to compile its final report. Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
He's the man tasked with transforming Newcastle's CBD. Sam Arnu is the CEO of Sydney-based developer Iris Capital, which has purchased the so-called East End site following years of uncertainty.
I personally see this East End precinct as a very livable part of Newcastle. This is the livable part of Newcastle.
The sale paves the way for a 7-stage development over 1.6 hectares of the Hunter Street Mall, 500 apartments on top and more than 7,500 square metres of retail space.
I think it has the makings to be something of an international stage and be absolutely envied by everyone around the world.
The site, which includes the former David Jones building, has been co-owned by the state government and GPT since 2012. Now, 3 months after it was put on the market, it's again changed hands, the new owner guaranteeing the development will be in line with building height limits.
We are already starting to work with architects to bring the site to a DA.
As for the price tag, well, Urban Growth and the new owners are remaining tight-lipped, insisting the sale was not about the money.
We'll reserve our right to not talk about the actual sales price.
I think that's got to remain confidential at this point.
The first development application is expected to be lodged early next year. Mike Lorrigan, NBN News.
As part of that growth, we actually train volunteers now to become mentors. We have a fantastic scholarship program.
It gave me some great drive and determination to be able to successfully complete my HSC and move on to further studies.
Brought in to give the Jets defence some experience and starch, Fife more than provided that against the Mariners.
That was unbelievable, you know, like for him, the absolute best we hoped for was 60 minutes and he got through that, got through a couple more, and I thought he's pretty much unblemished performance.
With Andrew Naboo and Alexander Coco, the latest out injured, Jones has brought Marley Lay and Labano Haliti into contention. The latter likely to get his first start of the year.
Yeah, he wants an opportunity, and but so do all the boys that are sitting on the bench. You know, like Stevie's been frustrated sitting on the bench for the last couple of weeks. He wants an opportunity. It's good. They all want to play. It's about them making good decisions when they're on the park and being effective.
The coach refuses to use the club's injury woes as an excuse. He believes in the Jets' ability to score goals, but concedes they need to start games with more confidence and enthusiasm.
Arnie stated that they're the fittest team in the league, but we run over the top of them in the last 20. We've run over the top of pretty much every team in the last 20. But it's about starting a little bit early and being confident when it's 0-0. We get back to 1-1 and we're extremely confident, but it's the same result at 0-0. So we need to play from the start and back ourselves to play through teams.
It was a big confidence booster. It's what I wanted to do while I'm here, so I'm looking forward to a lot more. First goal is the hardest, and once that happens, it all flows.
Yesterday would have been Rochelle Yeo's 36th birthday. Today, her parents stood stoic, determined to use their grief as a catalyst for change.
Our daughter was unfortunately murdered by a former partner.
While Roger Yeo says time is helping them heal, his daughter's death in 2012 has left a gaping hole.
I could literally tell you that there are probably 1,000 people around the world whose lives have been impacted by our particular tragedy.
They led a walk in Raymond Terrace today, standing shoulder to shoulder against domestic violence. The statistics paint a worrying picture. Between July and October, more than 9,000 domestic violence incidents were recorded across New South Wales. Between the Central Coast and Queensland border, the figures almost doubled the state average.
Early intervention and prevention is just the absolute key, and then if we're beyond that and we have high-risk offenders, then we'll go after high-risk offenders as well.
Across the Hunter, campaigners are determined to start the conversation. 67 women in white dresses attended a breakfast in New Lambton, representing the number killed through domestic violence this year across the country.
Even when they are silent, they are never alone, and that we, their community, hear their silent yet resounding plea for safety.
Sally Rafferty, NBN News. Restored to its former glory.
It's actually changing the freshwater vegetation back into estuary vegetation, so mangroves and salt marsh. That's some of the most valuable vegetation in the world.
After more than 2 decades of rehabilitation work, today those closest to the project took time to reflect.
The community volunteers have been working along with the government agencies to make it happen. So without these community people who just give up their time voluntarily, they're not paid for it, the project really wouldn't have happened.
The original structure was built in the 70s as a flood mitigation strategy, but after recognising the impact on local aquatic and bird life, the community pushed to have the gates reopened. Now, free-flowing saltwater has brought life back to the wetland.
The productivity from it is huge, so it's allowing fish to breed and it's allowing eastern king prawns to breed, and the birds have come back. They've come back from all over the world.
It's also an ideal breeding ground for Hunter River school prawns.
We've had some estimates done already, and it could be $1 million or it could be $3 million a year, and we're pinning that number down with New South Wales Fisheries as to what the value of the recovery of the swamp.
It's hoped the area may also become a valuable tourism asset. Sally Rafferty, NBN News.
Yeah, goals obviously, again, to take everything in, see where I go, what happens after, and train hard as I can with the coaches we have. It's great.
You'd think after more than 3 decades of endurance events, John Demandle and pilot Paul McGlynn have done it all. But no, there's plenty more pain on the way.
The Ironman is the hardest one-day event in the world, and everyone loves a challenge, no more than me.
The pair's aiming to set the fastest time in the world for a vision-impaired athlete when they tackle Ironman Western Australia in Busselton on December 4. Their goal, 11 hours and 8 minutes.
I've got to rely on John, John's got to rely on me. We're together for the whole 11 hours.
Demandle, a former Paralympian, has a degenerative eye condition which has left him with around 10% vision. But that's never held him back. He wants a start in the iconic Hawaiian Ironman in Kona.
I'm in my 50s and I'm still competing and performing as good as what I was when I was in my 20s and 30s.
We'll get there. We'll definitely get there.
At 24 years old, Will Carrigan's life was cut far too short. He took his own life last year, leaving his family devastated and a community reeling.
It was like a tsunami, I imagine. It hits you, you don't see it coming. It's total devastation, but basically your family's never the same again.
Will was a larrikin, a good mate and a hard worker. His teammates at the Scone Thoroughbreds remember a happy young man, but someone who kept his struggles quiet.
He was just such a fun-loving bloke to be around, and everyone wanted to be a mate with Will.
We think probably taking on business and being taken out of sport probably took Will to a really hard spot.
His family set up a foundation in his name, Where There's a Will. Its aim to prevent suicide by encouraging young people to speak up.
We can educate children to be more resilient, to be more hopeful, to bounce back. And there are programs available, but they're not getting to regional New South Wales or regional Australia, actually.
It's a huge task, and they're starting in their own backyard. They're looking to roll out positive education programs to 21 schools in the Upper Hunter over the next 3 years.
Something like this is extremely important, and it's very timely. If you can get to those kids before it's too late, before they start to self-harm, before they start to think about committing suicide, then that's really important.
People are also encouraged to attend a public forum at Scone High on Monday night. Mike Lorrigan, NBN News.
A groundbreaking program taking flight.
We're going to introduce HSC level Indigenous Australians to the world of aviation as a possible career path.
Dream Sky Aviation is helping open doors aspiring pilots like Buin Jacobson never thought possible.
It's one of those careers that aren't really looked upon as being achievable for people that aren't kind of in the know, people that don't really have connections.
And it's already helping turn dreams into reality. Buin has been offered an interview with Qantas.
Qantas is the dream. I would love to be an instructor as well. Just being in the air in any kind of profession is amazing.
With the growing need for pilots across the country, it's hoped the program will be adopted by other regions. A valuable move in bridging the gap.
Boeing's actually just recently done a study and they've identified there's going to be a need for 500,000 pilots to be trained worldwide by the year 2035.
Leaving a legacy in the process.
I think we'll be remembered for opening the door to something that the majority of Australia thought was impossible.
Sally Rafferty, NBN News.
Hopefully the information that they're gathering today, they will listen to the people and we'll end up with some great family spaces.
For those thinking Fingal Bay was going to be flat, Mother Nature had another idea. Championship leader Tannen Linden powered ahead early in Heat 1, but he couldn't quite hold on to the lead. A sprint finish saw Mermaid Beach young gun James Lacey cross the line first.
A lot of the boys got smoked off the start there. I was lucky enough to creep out in about third or fourth and just controlled the race from there.
The top two in each heat head straight through to tomorrow's final. Linden finished third and was forced to battle it out in the repechage for his second shot.
You know, you can make a couple of little mistakes and be that close and just miss out. So a little bit disappointed with that one, but you know, go into the next round and you know, sort out those mistakes that I made and get through.
Another big name in the mix today, Karawa's Matt Bevilacqua, who's second on the series leaderboard. But he too belonged to Hayden White. In cruise control, the Currumbin local earned a break ahead of tomorrow's final.
It's awesome to test ourselves in these conditions and, you know, everyone loves it and it's good for the crowd as well.
The men's final gets underway at 12:30.
From the most harrowing of ordeals, the most remarkable of outcomes.
Being hit by a roadside bomb gave me the boot in the bum to get my life into order and find out what really matters.
James Greenshields, a combat team commander, was on duty in Iraq back in 2007 when disaster struck. The IED tore through his armoured vehicle, leaving him wounded emotionally and physically.
I had every reason to live, but I couldn't bring myself to see that.
The change came when he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. He then embarked on a mission to first help himself.
Being hit by a roadside bomb was the 4th best day of my life.
And now he's helping others, running workshops across Australia for the Put Your Hand Up campaign, which is designed to help men deal with difficult emotions.
I've never been so happy because I'm living true to myself.
Boys don't cry, harden up, eat a tin of cement. All that stuff is breaking us as men because it's not how we naturally function. We're talking about masculinity coming from the heart.
While post-traumatic stress disorder is most common in returned servicemen and women, an increasing number of emergency workers are being diagnosed. It's estimated around 8% of Australians suffer from the disease, but the true number may never be known, with many simply not seeking help. James next heads to Melbourne. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It was the strike that broke the deadlock. And the deflection that broke the hearts of Jets fans.
And it's a horrible deflection if you're Jack Duncan.
Very disappointed to, to switch off for 5-10 minutes and then that's enough, and you can't afford to do that against the top team.
The match was fiery from the outset. There were plenty of chances for Newcastle in the first half, including this from Andy Brennan.
Obviously, he had a glorious opportunity to make a name for himself, and he didn't take that.
The second half only provided frustration for the visitors. The victory's second goal came in more convincing circumstances.
And Rojas finishes again. 2 goals in 2 minutes.
That's naivety, and that's something that if you want to be a top 16, we can't switch off for any period of time.
Adding to the Jets' injury woes, Lele replaced Morten Nordstrand at half-time.
Hip flexor. As always, we'll find out on Monday how extensive the injury is.
Newcastle's attention now turns to hosting Sydney FC next Sunday. It was do or die at Fingal Bay, with Currumbin's Hayden White coming off the ski with a narrow lead. Snapping at his heels, some of the sport's biggest names, Shannon Eckstein and Kendrick Louis. Into the shore, a group of 8 was still in the mix, this time led by Manly's Jay Furness and, of course, Louis. In his first final of the series, he sprinted away from Mermaid Beach's James Lacey.
It came to the last swim leg and I just gave it everything I had left and came away with it.
In the women's, Currawa's Rebecca Creedy led from the outset. The swim setting up a thrilling sprint finish with North Bondi's Lizzie Wellborn.
Stood up for that final run. I was not feeling good, so I'm glad I got there in the end. That's the main thing.
The series now moves to Torquay in Victoria.
If there's a way for there to be continuity of the professionals who are involved in those matters, then I think we will go a long way towards making things better for survivors.
It was meant to be the start of Kane Jones's murder trial, but proceedings came to a sudden end. The 24-year-old admitting to causing the death of 56-year-old Graham Wilton in a one-punch attack. Jones's family left Newcastle Supreme Court speechless. Comment at all? Anything to say? Only moments earlier, Jones, charged with murder, offered a guilty plea to the lesser charge of manslaughter. Aged 22 at the time of the offence, he punched Mr Wilton, who was visiting the Central Coast from Orange, once in the head in December 2013. The blow knocked the 56-year-old backwards, his head hitting the ground. Mr Wilton never recovered and died in February 2014. His wife, who was present the day of the attack, was also in court to face her husband's killer. Jones showed little emotion when offering his guilty plea. Other family members seated in court were overcome. Some moved to tears. Jones will return to court on Wednesday for the start of sentencing submissions. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Every business owner knows how hard it is to balance the books. At Raymond Terrace Community Preschool, they're struggling to make it all add up.
We're teachers, we deal with children and families. I don't have an accounting background, so it makes it hard.
They're blaming the state government's latest preschool funding model, Start Strong. From January, it will only give maximum funding to preschools where 4 or 5-year-old children attend for 600 hours a year, or 15 hours a week. This particular centre set its fees and 2017 enrolments before the model was announced, and say it's now at risk of losing almost a quarter of its funding. The preschool is now considering extended opening hours to enable children to meet the required weekly hours in 2 days instead of 3.
It's more based on playing a numbers game on your funding than actually what's in the best interests of the children and what the families need.
Centre directors say any decrease in funding leaves them with no choice but to increase fees, putting even more financial pressure on families.
The funding is meant to be there to allow preschools to offer their services at a level where families can access them. This funding model isn't achieving that.
The Minister for Early Childhood Education says for a preschool that's open 40 weeks a year, on average a child would already be enrolled for 15 hours a week. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
With 2 wins from 3 games, the Jets women were ticking along nicely. But a road trip to Canberra put a swift end to that.
On the weekend, we didn't perform anywhere near where we should, and we came up against a good team with some good players, and they punished us for it. So we've got to learn the lessons from that game and make sure that that we don't see it again.
Canberra scored 5 goals, with the Matildas' Michelle Heyman doing the bulk of the damage. And while the Jets scored 2 of their own before the finish, Craig Deans was less than impressed. Individual defensive lapses and lack of effort are being blamed for the defeat.
I took a risk on the weekend to play the way I played, and I wanted to score goals, and I didn't want to sit back, and that put pressure on the people at the back, and I thought we would be good enough to deal with Canberra, but on the day we weren't. So maybe I learned a little bit as well, but I won't compromise in my style of play.
The loss sees the Jets slip to 5th on the ladder. Sydney is currently 2nd and expected to challenge for the title. Deans expects an improved performance in front of a home crowd.
We have to win this game. We don't want to win it. We have to win it, and we had nearly 4,000 people there last home game. So we want to try and get that up to 5,000 or 6,000 by the end of the season.